Hello, welcome to my channel. My name's Alexander and today I'm going to review Artemis Fowl by Eoin Colfer. It was first published in 2001 and it's the first book in the Artemis Fowl series, which so far contains 6 books. In fact, if I was to stick to my rule of reviewing books in the order in which I read them, then the book I'd have to review now is Artemis Fowl and the Lost Colony, which is the 5th instalment in the series. First? 5th? Which one do you want? Thought so. Now, I should probably warn you that the plot summary is going to contain the word fairy. But don't let that stop you. Please keep watching. Just allow me to illustrate the plot here. The story starts when Artemis Fowl, a 14-year-old boy, discovers the existence of a secret underground fairy civilization. Now, in any normal fantasy book like this, the boy will then go make some fairy friends and then explore the underworld or something like that. But Artemis Fowl is no ordinary 14-year-old boy. He is in fact an Irish criminal mastermind. So he decides to kidnap one of the fairies and hold her ransom for huge amounts of gold. Way to go, Artemis. But this isn't your typically nice and innocent fairy civilization either. They're highly technologically advanced, and as soon as they discover that one of their fairies have been kidnapped, they immediately organise a big rescue mission to save Holly Short, this kidnapped fairy. That's when the showdown begins between Artemis Fowl and the fairies, and it is going to involve a highly intelligent but arrogant centaur, a kleptomaniac dwarf, a troll, and last but not least, the Lower Elements Police Reconnaissance Squad, a leprechaun. The author himself has described this book as being die hard with fairies, which I think is a fairly accurate description. It should be clear by now that although the story does involve fairies, then Artemis Fowl is not the standard fantasy novel. It takes place in our world, and although magic is involved, a lot of it is also just advanced fairy technology, which is then reminiscent of science fiction all of a sudden. It's also not a very serious book. Although it's a page turn and there's action going on all the time, then there's also this humour all the way through the book. It makes you laugh at some of the most climatic points, and the dialogue as well is filled with this kind of humour all the time. I'll read out an extract from the first chapter. In fact, I'm going to read from the very beginning, link to it here, and you'll notice that although the situation itself is quite a tense one, then it's described in a very pleasant and witty manner. Although occasionally the humour will also be a little cheesy and the situation's a little cliche. Another thing you could call a downside of the book is that it's not particularly realistic. Alex, the story involves fairies. Of course it's not going to be realistic. Yes, no, but what I mean is that even when Artemis Fowl is dealing with elements of the real world, the world that we know, you still have elements that are somewhat unrealistic. But then, does that matter? It's fiction. So what can we conclude from all this? That Artemis Fowl is a book mainly targeted at teenagers. More specifically, boys between the age of 10 and 16. If you're in that range and you like reading, this is a brilliant book. If you're outside, if you're a bit younger than that, then that's fine, read it anyway. If you're a bit older than that, you might start to find this a little bit silly. I personally still like this book. I'm 20, and in fact I wouldn't mind reading the entire series again one day. If you're a girl, you can definitely still enjoy this book because it's funny. But the reason I say it's primarily targeted at boys is because it involves more violence and less romance. But then again, I'm under the impression that teenage girls read more than teenage boys. Am I right in assuming that? Could you leave comments below saying whether you read a lot when you were a teenager? That could be an interesting experiment actually. But then again, the sample I would have would be kind of a biased one because the people commenting would be people who like watching book reviews anyway. What am I talking about? If you're worried about the fact that there's 6 books in the series so far and that a 7th one is coming up, and that you're not sure you'd be willing to read that many Artemis Fowl books, don't worry, you can still read this as just one book and not read the sequels. It works fine that way. It's got a proper ending and didn't need a sequel as such. If you're a bit more courageous, you might want to read the first 3 novels because they together form some kind of trilogy where you can then stop after the 3rd one. If you go ahead and read the 4th one, then you might as well read all of them. To paraphrase what I've said about Artemis Fowl so far, this is a very action-packed and modern fantasy. It's fast-paced, it's for all ages I'd say, but you'd probably enjoy it more as a teenager. That's all I had to say about Artemis Fowl. Next book review is going to be in 2 weeks. Bye! Also, I would never wear this in real life.